I think my sister's boyfriend, male 44, is infatuated with my young son. Originally posted to r/true off my chest, and the post reads as follows. Throwaway, since my sister's boyfriend is an avid Reddit user. This might be a long one, so bear with me. I, female, 38, am a single mother living on a waitress salary. Times are tough right now, and due to unforeseen circumstances, I've had to move in with my sister for the past couple of months. It's not an ideal situation, but I'm doing my best. I have an ex-husband who is male 40, who is emotionally abusive, hence the divorce. We share custody of my incredible son, let's call him Roman. He's a preteen, or just turned a teenager, who has been so understanding of our financial situation. Even at his age, I love him more than I love myself. He is kind and intelligent. He stole my ex-husband's face, unfortunately, so he's beautiful. Every mom will say their son is beautiful, but my kid really is stunningly gorgeous. The amount of adults my age and older who have given him the creepy and unwarranted "he's going to be a heartbreaker in a few years" comments would alarm you. He has ADHD, but maintains decent grades. He plays a sport and is good at it. He's got lots of friends who visit often, and vice versa. Despite the changes in our living situation, he is thriving, and I'd do anything to keep that up. My sister, let's call her Sarah, 42, and her boyfriend, let's call him David, who's 44, are well off and live in a massive house. My sister was happy to take me in, but her boyfriend, David, not so much, which I completely understand. I offered to pay rent, but my sister won't have any of it, so I do chores around the house and cook as often as my work schedule will let me. I never saw much of David anyway. He was often at the bar with his friends, or working, or locked in his room playing video games. When we did see each other, he acted like I didn't exist. My son Roman was staying with his dad for a while, as I was figuring things out, and I was worried about David's attitude once my son moved in with us. I talked to David and promised him that Roman would be respectful and well-behaved, but he was weird about it and shrugged me off. Then David met Roman. David is absolutely fascinated with my kid. His disposition changed so quickly that it gave me whiplash. Suddenly, he stopped locking himself in his room and has decided to spend time with us. Well, mostly my son. He helps Roman with his homework. He watches all of Roman's favorite shows so that they can talk about them together. He buys him food and gifts. My sister Sarah is over the moon. She's been telling me about how us moving in has been the best thing for the relationship because David is happier now. I thought it was sweet at first, but in the back of my head, I think something more nefarious could be going on. To paint a clear picture, I've noted some other changes I've noticed that I can't decide whether they're innocent or not. Number one, David texts my son often, which wouldn't be weird, except he does it while he's at school. The texts themselves aren't weird at all, but David lightly scolds him for not replying sometimes. Number two, before my son moved in, David was rarely ever home during the afternoon or evenings. He'd stay out after work and go drinking with his buddies until late in the night, a habit he's had for years. According to my sister, now he's home all the time. He gets home before Roman gets off the bus around 3:15 if he's not at practice, and stays home all day, even offering to babysit while I'm working through the evening. He still drinks, just in the house. Number three, last Wednesday, I woke up to use the bathroom during the middle of the night. To get to the bathroom, you have to pass by my son's room. I was surprised to see that the door was closed all the way, since Roman always likes it open because his room gets hot at night. Also, he's been staying up late texting his friends lately, which has caused him to sleep through his alarm and miss the bus some days. So that night, I opened the door to let the air in and make sure he was still asleep. And there was David, standing by Roman's bed, in the dark. He stated that he was looking for his cell phone, but I saw him jump with anxiety when I opened the door. He left quickly, muttering something about how it might be in the kitchen. Why would his phone be in my son's room? And why was the door closed? Number 4, David offers to drive my son everywhere he needs to go. Only him. School, if he misses the bus. Practice, his friend's house. This is the same man who wouldn't lift a finger for me until my son moved in. It's been incredibly helpful since I'm not home often. But a part of me wonders if he's doing it for the wrong reasons. Number 5, I caught David doing Roman's laundry, resulting in a few articles of clothing going missing. This one irritated me because I make my son do his own laundry. I asked him not to do this, but his excuse is that he is trying to save water. I don't know how to fight him on this, since it's his house. I'm terrified to bring this up to my sister. Am I reading into things too much? Am I silly for worrying that he might have ulterior motives? If I tell my sister and she gets angry and there's nothing going on, she'll kick us out and we'll be homeless. And then the OP posts an update the next day. And let's get into it. Hi all. First, I want to thank you all for your responses and suggestions. I'm so overwhelmed by the replies and was unable to read them all. But I'm glad and terrified to see I'm not going crazy, that there is something wrong. I also want to thank those who shared their experiences with being manipulated and or SA'd, as it opened my eyes to a lot of things. Second, I'd like to clarify a few things. I did not let my child in David's car after the bedroom incident. I would never do that. After this occurrence, tied with the laundry situation, I began to take note of David's behavior, which was when I started putting the pieces together. I came to Reddit shortly after, and here we are, unfortunately. Third, I'd like to address a couple questions I've seen. Number 1, David is not on any SO registry. Number 2, by saving water, David meant that he combines loads of laundry, meaning that he'll do his laundry and Roman's laundry in the same load. The laundry that I've seen go missing are mostly socks, which is typical, even when Roman was doing his own laundry. But then, Roman told me that he was missing a couple shirts and a pair of underwear. That alarmed me, since this only happened once David started doing his laundry. Massive red flag. Number 3, the texts between really are innocent. David asking him what he wants for dinner, what time he should pick him up, discussing shows they've been watching, but based on his other behavior, it's clearly a manipulation tactic, and I'll be sure that it stops immediately. No way in hell should he be texting my kid at school. Number 4, the bedroom situation in clear detail. I peeked in to make sure that Roman was asleep, and David was at the foot of his bed. The room was, of course, pitch black, and I was groggy as hell. So I didn't even register that it was him until he pushed past me to leave. I checked on my son afterwards. He was still asleep, and the blankets were fully over him. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, but maybe I'd just intervened at the right moment. I made sure his door was open, and I left my door open as well so I could listen for any footsteps. I could not sleep after that happened. It wasn't sitting right with me. None of these are excuses. Like I said, eyes are wide open now. Fourth, I'll discuss everything with my son tonight once I get off work. A lot of you said it was a good idea, and I was already planning on doing it. He has not been acting strange in any way and in his usual happy self, but that doesn't mean that David hasn't done anything yet. That reality is terrifying to me, and I pray that's not the case. I pretty much have a clear idea on what to say to him, but I'm not sure if I should explicitly tell him that I found David in his room or that he might be stealing his clothing. Any suggestions on how to go about this conversation are welcome. Fifth, I fully plan to confront David and talk to my sister Sarah about this. I am not a doormat, and I will do anything to keep my son safe. David is on a church retreat and thankfully has not been home for a few days. I've decided to speak with my sister first, in case David twists my words or manipulates her into believing that nothing is wrong. And once he returns, I'll confront him based on how my sister reacts. Any other suggestions on how to go about it are welcome as well. Sixth, I've read your suggestions about setting up cameras, checking for cameras, drug testing my son, and finding his missing articles of clothing. I plan on buying cameras and drug testing him once we have a conversation. I did look for cameras and found nothing, but I'll look again. I'm terrified of what I might see if I end up finding Roman's missing clothing. But I know it's just a reality that I have to face. That people can be so disgustingly vile to a minor. Lastly, I know I need to get out of this house. I know that. I'm working on it. If I could pack everything up tonight and do it, I would. I'd send him to live with my ex-husband, but he's abusive toward my son and me. More so toward me, but still. I've considered your suggestions about looking into homeless shelters, and I'm leaning toward making arrangements for that after I confront David. I'm a good mom, but I know I'm not the best mom. This past week has been hell. I should have intervened earlier. I regret that. Thank you for listening. I'll update once I follow through with my plans. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, good luck and stay safe. Tell a friend you have a difficult conversation coming up and ask them to check on you afterwards. You don't have to tell them what it's about, just that you want them to make sure you're safe afterwards, just in case there are some bad reactions. Don't forget to check women's and crisis shelters too. They might have some resources beyond just a place to stay. They also have staff trained to help. I think unless your son asks for all the details, it might scare him to know everything. He deserves to know eventually, but it might cause complete panic if he knows and can't leave. Maybe get him one of those travel door locks or alarms. That way, it's not permanent, but will prevent anyone from going into his room undetected. Could also consider getting him pepper spray to hide near his bed. Make sure he knows none of this is his fault and that he's safe to tell you anything. That you're not going to be mad at him and not going to hurt anyone. That can be a concern for a child who thinks their parent might go to jail, leaving them in an even worse situation. And the OP replies and says, thank you so much for your advice. He has a lock on his door, and I'll be sure that he uses it from now on. And someone else says, all I can say is good luck. I can't imagine being in that situation. When you confront him, it'd probably be better if your son was maybe at a sleepover. Does he have any friends with parents you trust you could ask for the night? You said you already talked to your sister about once before, so you know if she may react better, but who knows how David will react. And the OP replies saying, I can think of a friend to have him stay with. That's a smart idea. Thank you so much. And then the OP posts an update 4 days later, and let's get into it. Hi all, this is my second update. My first post got removed, but you can find it. But in the past 4 days, I spoke with my sister Sarah, her boyfriend David, and my son Roman, all separately. One went well, 2 didn't. I have a lot to get off my chest, so this might be long. There's a TLDR at the bottom. My first conversation was with my son, which occurred the night I posted my first update. In fear of this post getting removed like my first one, I'll have to censor myself, but I think you'll understand what I'm referring to when I say that I asked my son these serious questions. Roman adamantly denied that David ever did anything to him. He seemed surprised that I asked. He said he would have told me if he had. I believe him. I know he could be lying, but I'm trying to take his word for it. My son and I have a very open and transparent relationship. The first time my ex-husband ever verbally abused him, he came straight to me and told him about it. My guard is up, but I have to give him the benefit of the doubt. Like you all advised me, I didn't bring up the bedroom or laundry situation, but I was honest with him, and I told him that David's behavior toward him was inappropriate. We had to talk about boundaries, saying no, consent, etc. I drilled into him that David is not to drive him anywhere, text him anymore, and be around him alone under any circumstances. I also explained what manipulation is and that it's what David has been doing to him. He said he knew about it through a school assembly. Then he said something that broke my heart. He apologized for letting David treat him that way, that he, quote, shouldn't have fell for it. His exact words. I assured him that none of it was his fault. I want to make it clear that David is not preying on him because of how he looks or how he acts. He is doing it because he is a predator and they prey on the vulnerable. Honestly, I could tell that the conversation had left him a little shell-shocked. To know that the person you liked and trusted isn't who you thought he was would leave any kid rattled. For the entire rest of the night, he followed me around like a lost puppy. It did break my heart a little to see him like that, but I don't want him to feel a false sense of security around David, so I have no regrets about it. Sarah was next. I knew it would turn into an argument before the conversation even began. It's always been that way with her. My sister is nice, but not kind. She'll take you in off the street, but then throw it back in your face if you cross her. So I knew what I was getting into. But I had to do it not only for my kid's sake, but for hers. This is not a man I want her to be with, have children with, nor do I want him in our family. I told her that I was uncomfortable with the way David acts around Roman, and that I think it's a lot deeper than what he portrays it to be. I mentioned that I didn't like the gift giving and the constant texting, and I brought up the bedroom and laundry incidents. Like I predicted, she was more offended that I was accusing her boyfriend of manipulating my son. She didn't see how that was proof of anything. Quote, "Do you know how many socks and pairs of underwear I've lost while doing the laundry? It's probably stuck somewhere in the dryer." The more I expressed my concerns, the more defensive she got. She thinks I'm manic, essentially. She said that as soon as things got good for me, roof over my head, food in the fridge, a steady job, I intentionally screw it up because deep down, I don't think I deserve happiness. That she tries to help me every time, but I end up stabbing her in the back, like I am right now. So, she doesn't believe me. That's her prerogative. Fine. I told her that I won't be staying at her house much longer, and that I don't want David around my kid anymore. That we'll be keeping to ourselves for the rest of my short time here. She's letting me stay, surprisingly, but she said she's glad to see me go. She swore up and down that David would never hurt Roman, and that she was sad to see the relationship ruined over an accusation with no real basis, that I shouldn't let my behavior and my bipolar paranoia get in the way of other people's happiness, and that I better not accuse her boyfriend of being a predator anymore. Essentially, she kept shifting the blame onto me, so I ended it there. Oh, and she told me that she wants reimbursement for things like clothing and grocery shopping, because apparently we are draining her wallet with it buying so much food. Yes, an 8th grader does go through a growth spurt and eats a lot. Shocker. But I apologized and said I'd buy his and my groceries from now on. David came back from his church retreats Friday morning, which is when I confronted him. I was very upset, so I didn't go easy on him. He was thrown off by my hostility, but once he understood what I was implying, His demeanor shifted. Sit down, let's talk about it, he kept saying. Except he was the one who was nervous and looked like he was on the brink of a panic attack. I kept my composure. I asked him why he was in my son's room in the middle of the night with the door shut. He gave the same excuse that he was looking for his cell phone. I asked him why he couldn't have got it in the morning. He said that he set the alarm to 5 a.m. for work and that he didn't want to go off with my son in the room and wake him up. I asked him why he was standing over my son's bed. He admitted that he was trying to wake him up and ask him if he'd seen his phone. Did he just not say that he didn't want the alarm to wake him up? I asked him what on earth would compel him to think it is okay to wake up my child in the middle of the night to help him look for a cell phone. He said he wasn't thinking straight and that he was sorry. I asked him about the missing laundry as well. He adamantly denied what I was implying. He said that his and my sister's clothing get lost in the laundry all the time, that he would help me find my son's missing clothing, all while apologizing profusely. I'll admit, I was thrown off by how apologetic he was, and it made me a little soft. I thanked him for letting me stay in his house, and I apologized for not setting boundaries earlier. But I told him that from now on, I didn't feel comfortable with him being around my son. No more driving him places, buying him gifts, texting him, helping him with homework, doing his laundry, etc. I essentially told him that he is no longer allowed to be alone with my son or touch his things under any circumstances. He broke down in tears. He was hysterical. The thought of me believing that he is preying on my son made him miserable. That he'd never do that. He said, I love him like a father loves a son. When reading my original post, a lot of you believed the same thing at first. So did I, but I just don't like the way David looks at him. Yes, I see the kindness in his eyes toward my son as he helps him with homework or watches a show with him, but there is a nuance of something covetous and sinister that I can't shake off. Anyway, I told him that it's unhealthy for him to be so fixated on a minor, and that he cannot depend on my kid for happiness. I told him that we'd be leaving very soon. More on that later. I didn't tell him where or when it was happening. He asked if there was anything he could do to rectify the situation. He suggested that the four of us sit down and talk about it. I declined. I reiterated that he is not allowed near my son anymore and left it at that. A small part of me feels like I was too harsh on him overall. Maybe he was just looking for his phone. Maybe it's a coincidence that articles of clothing are missing. But he was on his knees, sobbing, like I just pulled the rug out from underneath him. For a child he hasn't known that long, I don't think he was devastated that I'd accused him of being a predator. He was devastated that I revoked his access to my son. I'm not stupid. I once witnessed this man argue with my sister. Brutal, verbal assaults from both sides, which ended in my sister crying. He didn't shed a tear. For my peace of mind, and yours, I've been watching Roman like a hawk. When I'm home, he's with me. When I'm not home, he's at a trusted friend's house or again with me. I actually took him to work with me this morning, which he wasn't thrilled about, but whatever. I made him block David's number, of course. We haven't been in the house since Friday, but as some of you suggested, I will sleep in his room at night instead of making him sleep in my room. I'll be honest, I decided to hold off on drug testing him because I really do not think David has been drugging him. My son is naturally a heavy sleeper and has always had issues waking up for school. Even before we moved into my sister's house, I checked his text messages, and from what I've seen, he's never texted David at night. He's usually up texting his friends in a group chat. Like you all suggested, I purchased a nanny cam, specifically the one where you can watch the footage on your smartphone. I wasn't expecting it to be so pricey. I ordered them on Wednesday, and they are due to arrive tonight or Monday morning. I'll put it in my son's room and review it every day. I'm really nervous because there's a possibility that I'll see something odious, and I don't know if I can handle that. Lots of you have voiced your concerns for my kid. From what I've seen and from what he's told me, he's doing fine. We've been staying at a motel for the weekend now that David has returned from his church retreat. I wasn't taking any chances. $56 a night and a little sketchy, but I don't want to complain. Again, despite the situation, his mood has been a lot better than mine has. He thinks a motel is the same as a hotel, so to him, it's like we're on a mini vacation. It's mind-blowing how kids can be so resilient, even in the most unnerving situations. The majority of you have told me to go to a women's shelter. I looked into this, and while it's an option, the closest one to where I live is more than an hour away. I don't have a car. I can take the bus, my usual mode of transportation, but that disrupts his commute to school and my commute to work. It's still winter and freezing cold where I live, so I'd rather watch him like a hawk than live on the street and subject him to the cold weather. And I'm not taking him back to my ex-husband's house. There's a reason why he left and why I divorced him. Which brings me to some good news. I applied for public housing a long while back, and I am in the process of getting approved. They contacted me for documentation, which I submitted, and I got verified, so I think that's a good sign. I'm very fortunate, since I know wait lists can be long sometimes. I can't believe I'm holding it together so well, but I'm proud of myself. I think I'm doing everything I can. Thank you for listening. I'll update again shortly with hopefully better news. Edit. This goes without saying, but I will of course talk to my son before putting a camera into his room. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, "Hey, I'm really proud of you for handling yourself with such grace and taking your son's safety so heavily into consideration. A lot of parents wouldn't do as much as you are doing right now. You sound like a freaking super mom. Roman is very lucky to have you. As for your sister and her boyfriend, if David likes boys, she'll find out sooner or later, and she's chosen the hard way. I understand that it can be hard to come to terms with someone you love being a predator, but if my family raised these concerns, then I would kick him to the curb and never look back. Family comes first. I wish you all the luck and support the universe has to offer, and I pray you find somewhere comfortable for you and your son soon." And the OP replies saying, "Thank you for your kind words. I'm really hoping that the housing opportunity works out for us." And then the OP posts an update a few days later, about a week later. And just a quick warning, it is very disturbing. Let's get into update number 3. Hi all, so this is my third update. Another long one. I have both bad news and good, really good news. Due to the bad news, I'm not mentally doing the best right now, so I'm sorry if this is scrambled because I don't really know where to start. I'm angry, hurt, disgusted, and as all of my emotions begin to pile upon each other, I'm beginning to spiral a bit. And before anyone begins to worry, I'll put it out there that my son is doing okay. I guess I'll start off by saying that my son and I weren't in the house much up until Friday of this week. We've been staying at a local motel that's decently close to a school and where I work. I'm a waitress at a restaurant, and my manager knows I'm dealing with housing issues, so he's been a bit understanding with me when I call out. But when you don't work, you don't get paid. And between the lifts, takeouts, and motel costs, my wallet isn't doing so great. But I'm 100% making it work, and I have no regrets. But since we weren't at the house, things sort of escalated a bit. David's number is blocked on Roman's phone, but he found him on TikTok and Instagram on Monday night and messaged him there. Nothing explicit in the messages, just things like, "Did you block my number? I really miss talking to you. Is everything okay? Maybe in the future, We can talk to each other again. I'm sorry if I upset you or your mom. Are you and your mom safe? Where are you staying? Respond to me when you get a moment. I have something important to tell you." And many more like that. Just him begging my son for a conversation. I was livid when my son showed me. I think what set me off the most is that I know David messaged him because he thought my kid would respond without telling me. He thinks they have some sort of secret private relationship right under my nose that I'm interfering with. I'm pretty sure that's why he hasn't kicked me out of the house. He's not mad, just miserable and desperate for some sort of contact. I feel like no matter how hard I pull my son away, he's refusing to let go. We blocked the Instagram and TikTok accounts immediately, and I screenshotted the messages. I'm trying to keep a record of everything. I asked Roman to delete his Snapchat account, just in case, but he didn't want to. I'm 99% sure he has a girl in there that he likes. I let that slide because he came straight to me about the other accounts, and he agreed not to add any new accounts on Snapchat or post anything that gave away our location for the time being. This entire ordeal upset my son. He broke down in tears when he came back from school the next day. That hurt a lot to see. I don't know if I expressed this, but Roman genuinely liked David, and they got along well. Maybe my kid saw him as a father figure since he was shunned and neglected by my ex-husband. I think I underestimated the mental toll it would take on him from having to cut David off completely and then block him when he reached out privately. Someone noted that I should get him into therapy soon. I plan on doing that once we are securely living on our own and I find the money for it. It's definitely a priority. David's harassment spilled over to me too. He called me multiple times and texted me things like, "Let me know when you're back so we can resolve this. Am I allowed to attend Roman's baseball game on Thursday with you? I'd like to support him. Can you please answer? I'd really love to talk. Just us. I'm sorry if I gave you both the wrong impression. I didn't block his number on my phone. I figured that the more he talked, the more likely he'd continue to incriminate himself and I could use his words against him. I didn't answer a single one of his questions, but I let him know that if he contacted my kid ever again, or if he showed up to his school or any events, that I'd go straight to the police. And that's not an empty threat either. Unbeknownst to him, I'm getting the police involved because I now have solid evidence that this man has a sick obsession with my son. This is bad news, and I'll forewarn you that if you're easily triggered, please don't read any further or at least skip this in the next 2 paragraphs. I want to thank you all for confirming my suspicions in the first post because I found something heinous. I mentioned that I plan to set up a camera in Roman's room. I asked for his permission first, and he said that he didn't care since we're barely in the house anymore. The camera I chose is motion sensitive and links the footage to my phone, so I can watch it anywhere. The camera was set up on Sunday night as soon as I received the package, and I hid it above the door frame so that I overlooked the entire room. You can't see it unless you use a ladder. I didn't get anything for a couple of days. I was randomly notified of movement in the room, but saw nothing when I looked at the footage. But on Wednesday evening at around 6, David came into my son's room, stood there for a moment, and then left. No longer than a minute. An hour-ish later, he returned and started going through his drawers. He picked up a specific garment and left within less than 2 minutes. I wanted to throw up. I didn't sleep that entire night at the motel. The following day, I had someone cover my shift, which gave me the opportunity to do a deep search of David's room while he was at work and my son was at school. I found the article of clothing inside of his pillowcase, on top of the pillow, right where you would lay his head to rest at night. I was so sick to my stomach that it took me almost 2 hours to confiscate that article of clothing and check it for evidence. I won't elaborate, but you can infer what I mean. I was nauseated the entire time. All I could do was put on gloves, throw it into a Ziploc bag, and shove it into my closet. I didn't want to look at it or even think about it. I still don't. That answers the question of why David was so incessant on doing my kids' laundry. Who knows how long this has been going on for? I've been ruminating on the next steps to take. Besides my main priority, going to the police, my other priority is telling my sister Sarah. We are obviously not on the best terms right now. She found out that I confronted her boyfriend last week, and she is livid. How dare I accuse him of manipulating my son? Apparently, he's not the same man he was after we left, and returned to his old habits. He was back to going to bars with his friends every evening. His drinking got worse. He had stopped coming home early from work and dragged himself through the door at almost midnight, if he even bothered coming home, that is. And he was no longer affectionate towards her. Apparently, it's my fault he's depressed again. If those aren't red flags, I don't know what is. I can't tell if she's in denial or if she can't actually see them. But what she's most concerned about is that David hasn't been home since Thursday. He went to work, came home briefly, then left again without telling her when he'd be back. In my head, that made sense. He knows that either she or I took the garment that was inside of the pillowcase, and now he's afraid to come home. It confirms all of my suspicions. I will tell my sister everything, though probably tonight or tomorrow. I have no idea how to go about it, and I guess I'm nervous about her reaction. She's still convinced that I'm having a manic episode. I was diagnosed with bipolar 1 many years ago, and I take medication to manage it. If I go off of my meds, my mania will progressively get worse until I spiral into psychosis. So her concerns are valid. I put her through a lot back when I wasn't stable, but that's not the current case for me right now. I have tangible proof and video proof of her boyfriend being a creep. I can bring up the camera footage, and then I have the issue of not getting either of their consent to put a camera in their house, and I don't know how well that would go over with her, even if it was for good reason. I just know that if I were in her shoes, I would be grateful that my boyfriend, potential fiancé, was outed as a predator before I got engaged to him. She's pretty much past the age of having children, but has plans to adopt in the distant future, so I have to tell her. Somehow. My son and I have been back in the house since Friday night. My sister still isn't kicking me out, but she doesn't want me here anymore. She's made that very clear. The only reason why I haven't packed my things yet and left is because, again, David is gone. He won't tell anyone his whereabouts and has turned off his location on his phone, according to my sister. She thinks he might be crashing on a friend's couch, something he's done multiple times in the past. I think he knows I'm onto him, but his absence means that I can stay at the house for now. I'm still watching my son like a hawk and staying hypervigilant, still sleeping in his room, taking him to work with me, etc. I can live with the hostility from my sister as long as he is safe, especially since we won't be here for much longer, which leads me to the good news. I got approved for public housing. I won't share too many details, but I will share the most important one. We'll get to move in a little over 3 weeks. There are a lot of logistics that I need to work out, the school bus system, a mode of transportation to work, etc. But I'm glad that something is working out in my favor after this week of hell. The constant vigilance is exhausting, and I can't wait to be in a safer environment. I guess all I really have left to say is that I'm not sure how to go about providing the evidence I have to the police. When I give them what I have, they'll start some kind of investigation, right? I'm just nervous that I could get into trouble for the camera and the messaging that counts as harassment, right? Do I tell my sister everything before I go to the police? Any advice you can give is welcome, because I've never been in a situation like this before, and I don't want to mess it up. Just because I'm leaving does not mean that I'm letting David get away with what he's done. Thank you all for your unwavering support. I'm having a hard time right now, but I'll update as soon as I can. Thank you for listening. Edit. Thank you all for the overwhelming advice. I put the clothing into a paper bag. I had no idea how plastic could affect it. I will make copies of the text and the camera footage. I will not be telling my sister anything for the time being. And I am going to the police tomorrow. I am looking into getting a lawyer as well. Roman's school has already been informed that I am the only guardian allowed to pick him up. He will be staying with a friend tomorrow night, and once I save a little money, I will move us back to the motel. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, make multiple copies of the videos and send them to yourself and send it over email, text, as many ways as possible to ensure you don't somehow accidentally delete the copy. Someone else says, show the videos, screenshots in the clothes he took to the police, and say you have a suspicion of David's intention towards your son and around people around his age. Do not tell your sister until you talked to the police. She'll most likely tell David, and he could try and do something to make things difficult, or he could blow up and do something to endanger you and your son. And the OP says, I agree. I've made the decision not to tell my sister until I get a lawyer and talk to the police. Thank you for your advice. And now let's get into the next update, which was posted a few days later. And the update reads as follows. Hi all, this is my fourth update. It's a bit weird to be sharing the personal details of my life to thousands of people online, but I feel like I owe it to you all and it helps me keep track of everything, so I don't mind. Not to mention how helpful your advice has been, as I've never experienced a situation like this, and I was terrified that I'd make the wrong move and mess everything up. So thank you all so much for being so kind and helpful. There's a lot I have to talk about. I did go to the police and an arrest will most likely be made in the near future. Before I get into that, I think I will start with the escalation in David's behavior and his whereabouts, and then circle back to what happened with the police. Hopefully the timeline still makes sense. In my last update, I left off with David's disappearance after I found out what he did with my son's clothing and confiscated it. It turns out that David was not on the run, nor missing, nor crashing on a friend's house. He holed up at his parents' house and is still currently there. My sister informed me that due to my actions of him manipulating my son, David had a mental health crisis. She hopes I'm happy with myself, and she feels the need to stay with him for support. So, in other words, he's hiding at his parents' house because either the guilt is getting to him or he's scared, or both. His entire family is infuriated with me. Whatever story he's feeding them is making me look insane in their eyes. Not once did they ask me for my side of the story. After I went to the police, my sister made the decision to kick me out of her home. I saw it coming a mile away, so I'm not too upset by it. I just wish she didn't feel so much fierce loyalty to him and his family. I don't even know how to explain to my kid that his aunt doesn't support him. She does know I was approved for housing and that I have no other place for our belongings at the moment. So she at least has the decency to let us keep our stuff there until we can fully move out. I guess that counts for something. Not much else to say about that. I've just been trying to keep my distance. David's behavior, though, got so much worse during this mental health crisis. The harassment escalated to stalking under the guise of wanting to clear the air. He showed up to Roman's baseball game that was held at a different school to try and speak with him. That means he found his schedule, the exact time he was playing, and the address of that school. Found the motel we'd been staying at. We had to move to a different one after this incident. Created 3 other Instagram profiles to message him about how this is all just a misunderstanding, how much he misses him, etc. Some of these messages were awful. Things like, Don't let other people make decisions for you. And you're old enough to decide who should be in your life and who shouldn't. Paragraphs and paragraphs of him pouring his heart out to my son and begging him to not tell me that he's been reaching out. This harassment has left my son completely disillusioned. After screenshotting everything, I asked him not to read the messages anymore and to just delete them. At that point, I wanted to take his phone away, but I knew he would resent me for that. Maybe I made the wrong decision. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. The day David found our motel was one of the most traumatic moments of my life. I don't know how he found us. My sister knows I've been staying at a motel, but I never told her which one. On that day, it was about 9 p.m., and I needed to go to the corner store to grab something. My son was taking a shower and getting ready for bed, as he had school the next day. The corner store was a minute's walk away. The room we were staying in was visible from the windows of the store. I'd make this quick trip countless times. In the moment, I didn't feel unsafe leaving my kid behind, but hindsight is always 20/20. I already feel stupid. No need to tell me. David had parked at a lot across the street, and I didn't see his car. He waited until I was almost at the store and my back was fully turned to go to our motel room door. It was obviously locked, so he started knocking. But by then, I'd already heard him and was running in his direction. I nearly blacked out from the fear and adrenaline, and it's hard to remember much. I recall that he didn't seem angry. He just had this miserable, panicked look in his eyes. He really did look like someone who was going through a mental health crisis. I told him I was calling the police and that he needed to leave. He said that he was, quote, entitled to a conversation with me, but he ran off once he saw me dialing 911. To me, his reasoning is bullshit. He keeps saying that he wants a conversation and wants to clear the air with me, but if that were true, then why didn't he approach me? He knew I wasn't in the room. Why did he essentially try to break in where he knew my son was alone? I, of course, documented this incident with the police, which I will get into right now. On Monday, March 27th, the day after my last update and days before the aforementioned events occurred, I went to the police for the first time. The police officer I spoke with sat me down and gave me the opportunity to talk about everything. How David was very close with Roman, when I caught him doing with his clothes, the messages, etc. Thank God for these posts because I found myself referring back to them. Memory can be unreliable. I presented the evidence that I had as well. I showed the video footage and gave her the article of clothing I confiscated, as well as the text messages and Instagram and TikTok messages. She then told me she would contact the district attorney, which she did soon after. I was shocked by how fast the process was moving, and she told me that since it involves the potential SA of a minor, they didn't want to waste any time. I was interviewed again by a detective, and a couple days later, they called David in for an interview. By then, the stalking had begun. During my second interview, I showed him the new messages David sent and told him about how David showed up to the school and the motel. I don't know what they asked David during this interview, but I can imagine that he denied everything and spun up a web of lies to try and make me look crazy. I'm not really concerned about him though. With all of the evidence I have, David should be very, very nervous. A detective interviewed my son as well. This is what worried me the most. And I insisted that if they didn't have to do it, I'd rather they didn't question him at all. But they said it would help build a stronger case, and I trust them. I was told I had to be there during his interview since he is a minor. Roman only knows about the stalking and harassment, but he has no idea about what David did with his clothes. And I want to keep it that way for as long as I can. I personally asked the detective not to bring it up. I'd just like to shield him from it all. Then asked my son about the messages and the stalking, as well as their relationship. When asked about any physical contact they had, Roman brought something up that he didn't initially tell me about. He said there was one instance when he and David were in the living room watching a show called Stranger Things. David randomly placed his hand on my son's chest, left it there for a moment, then said, "I'm glad you're alive." I Don't really know what to make out of that, but combined with everything else he's done, it's very disturbing. I asked my son about it afterward, and he said that he didn't tell me because it didn't make him feel uncomfortable. As an isolated event, I guess it could seem like an innocent act, so I understand why he didn't bring it up, but I don't know. All I can do is take his word for it. In terms of the case, they are now requesting a warrant of arrest with the clerk of the court. If this is granted, then David will be arrested and charged with lewd and lascivious behavior, harassment, and stalking. He could end up getting up to 5 years in prison, maybe even more. So that's where I'm at right now, waiting for the clerk's decision. The waiting game is stressful, but I'm trying to focus on the positives as much as I can. It's nice to see how fast the police and detectives are working and how serious they're taking my case. All I can do is trust that the outcome will be in my favor. After the interviews, all of David's harassment stopped. Good thing too, stalking and harassment of a minor is a felony, and I'm sure knowing that the police are onto him scared him. I'm not naive enough to feel safe though. I filed a petition for a protective order after the motel incident. I've been feeling paranoid, not a good feeling for someone who's bipolar, and having a lot of anxiety lately. Always looking over my shoulder, flinching when I see a stranger who looks like him, etc. I'm entitled to have a conversation with you, he said when he tried to break into my motel room. But I don't believe him. I think David believes he's entitled to unrestrained access to my son due to their prior relationship. The entitlement is what scares me the most. That someone can just take something because they feel like it belongs to them. I'm scared to go anywhere with my kid. Anytime he goes to school, I fear that it'll be the last time I see him. It hasn't sunk in yet that my situation has developed into this. It's been difficult for me to wrap my head around where David's sudden attachment stemmed from. I was under the impression that predators are in general weird around minors, but he never acted this way around other minors, only mine. When he started dating my sister, she told me that David didn't want kids, and she was trying to convince him to change his mind. That's why she was so happy to see him and my son bond. Someone previously commented that in David's mind, he might believe that there's a legitimate romantic connection between him and my son. I don't know if there's any validity to that, and the idea of looking into it makes me nauseous. I'd rather not speculate and just pray that he gets arrested soon. The biggest drawback is that all of this has significantly disturbed our quality of life. I know that my kid is putting on a brave face, but he's not doing well. It's getting to him, and I knew it would. But actually seeing this siphon his happiness away is gut-wrenching. He's still doing fine at school, still eagerly partaking in sports and spending time with his friends, but every once in a while, he'll do the 1,000-yard stare. His eyes bereft of any sort of awareness. Disassociation, maybe? He used to eat a ton, but he hasn't been finishing his food lately. He constantly says he doesn't feel well. I can't afford therapy right now, but I spoke with his school counselor, and they want to start weekly meetings with him to check in, which my son was not thrilled about, as he does not want to bring any of this up at school. He is very open with me about his feelings, and we do talk about everything that's been going on, but there's only so much I can do. He needs a professional. I'm not doing well either. I am exhausted. I've never felt so overwhelmed in my entire life. My mental health is on a rapid decline. I'm not eating or sleeping normally. I can barely get through a shift at work without breaking down. Even my intrusive thoughts have been alarming and distressing. You don't think you're capable of these things until you're in the situation. There really is no going back once you find out something like that. I don't have a lot of people to talk about this. I think I need help. Hopefully, my next update is more positive. Thank you for listening. And that is the last update we have ever received from the OP, because the OP, soon after this post, deleted her account, and many people in the comments are speculating that she deleted her account because the police wanted her to. because in a lot of these Reddit threads, especially when the police are involved, the police don't want you posting an active legal case on the internet, which makes sense. And so maybe she deleted it because of that reason, or hopefully no other darker reason, because some people think that David made her delete her account, which I think is far-fetched. I think most likely the police were like, hey, stop posting this on the internet, but an extremely, extremely scary situation. I mean, I hope that the OP and her son are doing better now, but I mean, it'll take a long, long time to recover from this because what they experienced was just downright horrifying and disturbing. And I just hope that the OP and her son are doing better now. I think my boyfriend is trying to push our relationship off onto his friend. And just a quick warning, this one is absolutely horrific and trigger warning for stalking, harassment, and R word. Just a quick warning because this one gets dark. But let's get into it. The OP originally posts on r/relationship advice and says, as the title suggests, I believe that my 24 female boyfriend, who is 26 male, is trying to actively move me to date his best friend. I've been dating my boyfriend, we'll call him Michael, for about a year now. We've known each other for years previous because we've always been in the same friends group since high school. His best friend, we'll call him John, has also been someone I've known for a long time because he's also in the group. John had asked me out years ago, but I turned him down because he's always been somewhat of a cocky guy who could never see he was ever wrong. Many people find him charming, but I think smarmy is a better word. He seemed offended, but brushed it off and even told people that I had asked him out and he rejected me, which was fine because it didn't affect my life at all. After a few months, all was forgotten and we just pretended the other one didn't exist, and that's how it's been for years. Until Michael asked me out randomly and I decided to give it a shot. It turned out we had a lot of similar hobbies and really had a good time, so we started dating shortly after that. Now, about 6 months ago, Michael started to act strange, but in really subtle ways. I would talk about how much I loved animals, and he would interject that John just loved animals, which wouldn't be weird, but he did it with everything I talked about with even the slightest bit of enthusiasm. If I loved it, John loved it just as much. He told me how compatible me and John were, and how he wished we meshed more. I eventually told Michael I really didn't care what John liked because he was kind of pretentious, but we never got along. He seemed really offended, but quickly recovered, and by the next day, everything was good again. About a week after that instance, Michael would talk up John randomly and with seemingly no reason. Hey, I talked to Brittany yesterday and man, John is apparently a god in bed, haha. Maybe I should ask the guy for tips? John is volunteering at that shelter we went to a couple of weeks ago. What a guy. We should have John make us dinner. He's a great cook. It was every day to every other day I had to hear about John's greatness. And it was to the point I initially thought that Michael wanted to date John. Then 3 weeks ago, after we had some drinks, he asked me, if we ever broke up, would you date someone else in the group? I had no idea what to say because it was so random, but he quickly filled the void by saying, I think I would if I were you, and John was single. Seriously? So 3 days ago, I confronted him in the kitchen and told him that if he had anything he wanted to tell me, I would listen to it no matter what, and that I would always be there for him. He seemed confused and told me he had no idea what I meant by that. So I brought up all the times he talked about John and how he would date him, and told him that if he really wanted to date John, I understood and would support them. After all, they're best friends, so obviously they have a good connection. When I say he blew up, I cannot stress how angry he got. He used a dozen slurs for gay people and said he was disgusted I saw him like that, and that he would never do something like that. We ended up getting into a huge fight over it because I certainly don't support his language or attitude toward LGBTQ folks, and that it was just a vibe I got from him, and I didn't mean to mislabel him. We haven't really talked, but he's staying at his parents' house right now, and today John called me to tell me he doesn't support Michael's attitude toward me and invited me over to talk about it, even saying that Michael was 100% okay with it. Am I crazy? Am I making up some convoluted story in my head? Or is this bizarre? And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, you should ask him why he is trying to set you up with John. You should also break up with Michael. And the OP replies saying, I just didn't want to come out and say that because it's so presumptuous, I guess. I have no proof. Just that gut feeling that something is wrong. I'm trying to think through my options because this is our first real fight, but once again, it's always about John. Another user says, or Michael is secretly in love with John and hasn't wanted to come out yet. That explains why he blew up when you called him out. And the OP replies saying, well, I've been thinking this over, and if that was the case, I really don't think he would have said the things he said when I asked. Another user says, I'd be more concerned with his disgusting homophobia. And the OP replies saying, I definitely called him out on it. I think it just took a backseat to me trying to figure out the whole situation in general. But it is certainly not forgotten. Another user says, so it sounds like maybe they want a 3-person intimacy, or Michael is attracted to John in some way. Or here's the kicker. Maybe Michael cheated on you, and he thinks that if you hit it off with John and have intimacy, he wouldn't feel guilty about it. Maybe he's just trying to push a free pass on you without coming out and saying he cheated, or they are swingers. And the OP replies saying, oh my God, all these theories are living in my head rent-free right now, and I can't get straight answers from anyone. This is going to keep me up tonight, I can already tell. And then the OP makes an edit to the post saying, so I called Michael when he got off work, and the first thing he asked me was if I went to vent to John. Naturally, I didn't because we're not close and told him as much. He didn't have much to say to that, so I started on my questions that you guys suggested. Why are you pushing me toward John? Do you want to break up, etc.? He got out once again defensive and said he refused to talk about it over the phone and suggested we meet at John's place to talk it out. I asked why John had to be included at all, since it is really between the two of us, and he basically told me that it's really between the 3 of us. I refused meeting at John's for obvious reasons and told him if it had to be the 3 of us, we could meet at a restaurant. He seemed fine with that, and we rescheduled meeting at a bar/grill that's pretty close to all of us. I showed up early and got us a table that had some privacy, and not long after, John walks through the door. He sat down immediately and started chatting about how we were both so timely and that he liked when women showed up early because it showed they had good time management skills. 25 minutes after Michael was supposed to show up, he texts me and says he had car problems and couldn't make it but to get to know John since I was already there. I'm just beyond livid at this point. John keeps trying to buy me drinks and even tries to schedule another time to hang out. I confront him about Michael pushing me toward him, and he acted like he didn't know what I was talking about. I kept mentioning how Michael was talking about him to me, and John just said that it made sense because bros have bros' backs. I told him the bros can have each other and left fuming. Michael's tried calling me 3 times. John's tried 7. I want to cut them both off and say good riddance, but to do that would be leaving the friend group as well, and I don't really have that many friends to begin with, and it makes me so mad that I even had to make that decision. Anyway, that's the update. Sorry if it doesn't resolve anything. It makes me angry too. And now let's get into the relevant comments. Someone says, I'm going to throw this out there that you did the right thing by refusing to go to John's house. I'm not saying your boyfriend would set it up so that something bad would happen to you, but it looks like John has an unhealthy obsession with you that he somehow roped Michael into. And the OP replies saying, after Michael didn't show up to the bar, I was really glad I didn't go to John's. If he wasn't planning on showing up the entire time, I can only assume they figured this whole thing out together. And then the OP posts an update, and let's get into it. I went to Michael's house pretty early this morning since I have work today and really needed this resolved. I had been up all night going back through the comments and trying to piece everything together, and honestly, it was driving me crazy. Michael was alone when I got there, which was a relief because I pictured John showing up like a movie villain. He initially didn't want to let me in, which was really weird, but I told him I wasn't going to leave without talking to him about this. So he finally let me come in. We sat down to talk. I asked him about last night, which he said he had car trouble, but it was all fixed now. Convenient. I asked him a few more questions, but was met with vague answers, so I decided to just cut to the chase and said, why do you want me to like John? Do you want me to date him? Do you want to have a 3-person intimacy? What is it? Once again, instead of answering, he just watched me from his stupid chair and then had the nerve to ask me who I told my suspicions to. So I said I'd been running them through my head, but that my mom knew I was coming over to talk. She didn't, but he was starting to be really creepy. He got mad and said it wasn't like that, and I was making him out to be the bad guy because they were. Yes, they. Looking for something long-term, not just a one-time thing. And now that all my suspicions were 100% confirmed, I told him you can't make plans, including someone else, without their consent, and that I would never be interested in anything with the two of them, and that I was no longer interested in anything with just him either. I started leaving and told him to never contact me again. Same goes for John. And he could share the message when he blocked my way out and said I had to hear him out and his side of the story. I told him I didn't want to nor care to, and that he needed to let me leave because my mom was expecting me in the next half hour. He started getting frantic, saying if he could just get John over there to explain it, it would all make sense. So I ran out of the back door and used the garden exit to get to my car and locked the doors immediately. He came outside and started pounding on my windows, saying I was making a huge mistake and that I would regret this. I was bawling in my car when I backed it up to the driveway. I'm pretty sure I drove over their mailbox by accident because the back of my car has a huge dent. My car was basically out of gas, so I had to stop even though all I wanted to do was put as much space between us as possible, which is when I saw the dent. Right when I was about to leave, who else would call my name but his mom? She was on her way home from the grocery store and was worried because I looked like hell warmed over. I told her about everything that just happened and got more than a few stares from other people, but oh well, I guess I'm just the crazy lady at Maverick. His mom looked horrified for me and told me to stay as far away from him as possible. She told me to come sit with her in her car, where she proceeded to ask me when I met Michael, which was high school. She figured as much and said that in middle school, him and John R-worded a girl together and have a sealed record because they were minors and, quote, didn't mean to do it. She told me how sorry she was because she said it happened so long ago, she thought he changed. She put him in therapy and thought he was better. She said if she had any idea there might have been a chance of this happening, she would have told me immediately. I just gave her a quick bye, and I'm so scared of everything right now. I'm going to my mom's since they both know where I live. I sent a mass text out to everyone in the group detailing everything, and so far, 3 people have said they support me, so that's good, I guess. What do I even do? I'm never talking to them again. I've already blocked them both on everything I could think of, but I've been getting hidden number calls since. I'm considering going into the police station to file a harassment complaint so that it's at least documented. My mom said she's going to call my uncle who works at the court and see what the next best step is. Thank you guys so much. I don't know if I would have confronted Michael without you guys confirming how weird this was. I'm terrified, but glad that I at least know what's going on now. My mom's here as my support right now, and some of the girls are coming over later tonight just to make sure I'm okay. I'm sorry if this only makes some sense. The adrenaline still hasn't left me, and my hands are unsteady. I appreciate every single one of you who took the time to help me out because I think I got out just in time, honestly. Thank you guys. And God, that is a horrifying update, but let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, do you think that this could have been the plan all along? John tries to get with you. When you say no, he told Mike to get with you, and that works. After a while, John tells Mike to start hyping him up, telling you how great he is to see if you're interested. They seem to have a toxic brothers for life friendship where they share everything, even girls, and don't really care if the girl wants it or not as long as it's what they want. You said in an early post, Michael was the more dominant one in their friendship. I don't believe that's the case. I don't think he does anything without John say so. When Mike was getting frantic, trying to explain, saying it'll all make sense when John gets here, I imagine he thinks John can fix anything once John says everything is fine. I imagine it's been like this since middle school. Go to the police. Tell them what they did to you, what they did in middle school. If you have any text messages, voicemail, any evidence at all that this was what they were planning, you need to give it to the police. They've done it once. They tried with you. If you stay silent, they will do it again. And the OP replies and says, I'm going in about an hour with my mom and my friend Brittany. I have screenshots of the 70 plus phone calls from unknown numbers, and Brittany is kind of my witness to them trying to find me. I don't know really what to do or say. I just really hope the police listen to what I've got to say because I wouldn't know what to do if they just dismiss it. And then a commenter replies and says, hey, how did that go to the police? You're not the only one predators have targeted. You're not alone, and you'll be safe in the end. This kind of thing happens to anyone. I had a SA where I was the victim make the news because the guy was so creepy, so I hope you are okay. And then the OP replies saying, it went really well, I'd say. I told them what happened and even showed them this post since my writing is better than my speaking. It's all kind of a work in progress, but they were going to talk to Michael and John before filing harassment, I guess. Fingers crossed that cops showing up their houses scares them away. Another commenter says, you need to file a police report ASAP. Michael and John have a dom/sub relationship in where they lure women, and it has probably been going on for a very long time. In extreme cases, these become killing teams, if not handled correctly. And the OP replies saying, I was planning to go in today to do that. I'm just nervous they won't believe me. I don't know if that's something TV has put into my head or having no evidence, but I'm scared they'll think I'm just overreacting. Another user says, this was the first post I ever saved on Reddit to check later because I was so worried about you. I'm glad you're safe, but good God, you dodged a hail of bullets there. I can't imagine how you must be feeling, but just know there's a stranger out here thinking of you and sending you all the positive vibes. Oh, and as for his mom, I have no words for her that are allowed on here. If your kid is messed up enough to R-word someone in middle school, there's no fixing them. Not ever. And she knows it. That's just magical thinking/delusional. And that thinking puts you in an incredible amount of danger, especially as she has allowed him and John to remain friends. And the OP replies and says, thank you. Seriously though, she didn't find it worth telling me when they were still friends? Or when I told her how much Michael talking about John annoyed me weeks previous. I have a hard time feeling anything but resentment toward her, to be honest. And I completely, absolutely agree with the OP's comment here. Like, it's ridiculous that Michael's mom didn't say anything when literally the OP complained about Michael talking about John all the time and saying how great of a guy John was. Like, how did that not set off every single red flag in his mom's brain? I mean, like, that is just crazy, and I do agree. The mom should be held liable at some point because she knows her son is a danger to women and just people in general. And when Michael and John get together, they do obscene things. And for her to not say anything about it is just insane. But then the OP posted another update a few weeks later. And let's get into it. I'm so sorry it took me so long to update. Life has been crazy, and between everything in the state shutting down again, I've been a mess. I went and talked to the police about getting a restraining order, but the officer I talked to said it fell into domestic violence and had me file a DVOP, Domestic Violence Orders of Protection, and we have an unset court date to take it before a judge. Now, I'm nervous as hell about it, but at least something is going to happen. With Michael anyway, because I didn't have a relationship with John, and he never technically harassed me. There's not much I could do with him. I'm still getting a ton of blocked calls, but I'm in the process of changing my number, so that should resolve itself soon enough. I'm back in my apartment though. We've added some new safety features, cameras and new locks, and currently it's a waiting game. I have to see Michael in court at some point to tell my story, and John's gone MIA. When the police went to talk to him, he wasn't home and hasn't been as far as anyone I talk to knows. I get weird letters left at my door, but they've all been delivered by the post office, so not much I can do about that. It's mostly rambling about love, which gives me the creeps. I've stopped opening them at this point and keep them in the drawer for when I go to court. I have an interview for a new job, so wish me luck. My boss has let Michael in twice since I've been back, and I don't feel safe there anymore. My friends are split 80-20 now. Minority, thankfully, is with Michael and John, but now I know who I can't trust. Anyone who listened to what I had to say and still think I'm being irrational because I led John on is an asshole, no way about it. So good riddance. Unfortunately, my mom wasn't left alone, and someone broke her front window, so the police also had to show up for that one. It's been quiet for 2 days now, and I'm not sure whether to be relieved or nervous. Does looking over your shoulder ever go away? I hope so. This feels more like a diary now than a post. I'm okay though, and my life is getting there, so once again, thanks to everyone who helped me or messaged me. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, love these are clear signs of some kind of a psychotic dynamic. Use the knowledge you have. They S8'd a girl in high school together. Now they're getting violent, such as banging on your car window, trying to stop you from leaving, etc. No matter what, keep going back to the police station and trying to get that restraining order. Every time they call you, police station. Every time they show up at your place, police station. If you ever get something from them in the mail, don't open it. Take it straight to the police station and have them open it there. Seriously, every time you get any kind of contact from them, take it to the police. Build a very clear and distinctive paper trail that they are harassing you. And the OP replies saying, I've been writing down every time I get a call from an unknown number, and I have screenshots of all of them. There's like 70. I'm thinking of just changing my number, even though it would be a pain. I just wish they'd go away. Michael told Brittany that I stole money from him, so he just needed to know where it was to ask about it. She didn't tell him, but do you think if I brought her to verify how they're trying to find me, it would make my case stronger? And then a few weeks later, One commenter says, just saw your final updates after all of this. Any further updates with friends, etc.? Heard more from Michael? And the OP replies saying, Michael's tried to see me a few times, but every time he attempts to, it's just another thing I can write down for my court case. He technically isn't allowed near me or my place of work while we wait, but he's tried because he can't take no for an answer. Most of my friends are still with me though, and I didn't realize how much I hoped they would be until it all calmed down and I still had them around to help me through everything. And then the OP posted another update a few weeks later after someone said, hey OP, what happened? And the OP responds saying, I got a new job and a new place to live after someone tried to break in when I was out of town. I finally got my day in court, and Michael can't be within 800 feet of me without me being able to call the police. He also can't go anywhere I typically go, which includes my new apartment building or job. The letters really helped with all of that because everything else was just my word against his situation. I asked his mom to come as a witness, but she refused to talk against her son, so whatever. But yeah, basically, I'm breathing new fresh air around here. I've seen John twice in passing, and it still gives me the creeps. He's not barred from being around me, so he makes it a point to show up public places when he can and just hang around like the weasel he is. But the police gave him a very stern and impromptu talk when he showed up to support Michael at court. I think I'm in the clear, but they just want me to know they're still around, which sadly, there isn't much I can do to stop John anyway. And that is the last update the OP has ever posted, but this is just truly one of the most horrifying threats I have ever read, and just the reason being, the OP escaped by just a hair. I mean, literally, she was in Michael's house, and Michael tried to block the door so she wouldn't get out, and she had to run out the back gate, go around the side and into her car, and he was banging on her car door, and she, or even Michael said, hey, let's wait for John to come. Who knows what would have happened if John came? I mean, the worst could have happened easily. I mean, these two have the past of doing or committing R word. And I mean, the OP just barely escaped. And also now it's horrible that they didn't really get any sort of legal repercussions. And so now Michael and John are still out there following around the OP, which is just horrible. Like the OP said in the last update, John is just hanging around me, trying to make the OP feel uncomfortable. And so the OP can never feel relaxed in public, which is just so horrible. Like the OP can now not relax when they're in public or even in their own apartment because, like the OP also said, her apartment was broke into. We don't know who broke into her apartment, but could have been John or Michael for sure, which is terrifying. And I mean, truly, like, this is just so scary because the OP just barely escaped. And the worst could have happened, but luckily it didn't. But it's also just so horrible that they didn't face any legal repercussions because now there's no knowing if they're going to go do this to another poor girl, which it seems like they've done that in the past and they've repeated it with the OP here. And so the OP got out unscathed, but you know, unfortunately, we don't know if these two are going to do it again. And it's been 5 years since this update. So we don't know if anything happened after or what happened to Michael or what happened to John. But man, the OP really is lucky. But I'm really glad that the OP is all right in the end, even though it was a horrific experience. But I just hope that the OP is doing better now. And man, that was disturbing. My best friend's fiance is extremely inappropriate towards me. Throwaway because one of the people involved knows my personal account. I am at a loss for how to go about handling the situation in an appropriate manner. Any kind of advice would be greatly appreciated at this point. To make this easier, let's call my friend Kate and her fiance John. I met Kate during my sophomore year of high school through mutual acquaintances. We became very close so naturally, I was devastated when she moved several states away after graduating. Despite the distance, we kept contact and remained as good of friends as ever. About 2 years ago, my family happened to take a vacation in very close proximity to her new home. So, we excitedly planned to meet. It felt amazing to see her again. We both dashed out of our cars and hugged and squealed like stereotypical best friends. We hung out all evening and caught up with one another in person. Also, I had the chance to finally meet her fiancé of 1 year. I had heard only great things about this guy, and he seemed very pleasant. Shortly after returning home, I received a text message from an unknown number. John. He thanked me for stopping by to see Kate, saying that it really lifted her spirits and he hadn't seen her so happy in a long time. Understanding the personal issues Kate had been struggling with lately, I told him I was glad to have helped. I assumed Kate had given him my number and didn't think much else about it. John would text me here and there about little, insignificant things. He'd mention a movie him and Kate were about to see and ask my opinion, or suggest to me a fun new video game they bought. I would answer his questions or respond to suggestions, but never carry on a conversation beyond the original topic. John would attempt to keep me talking, but I always dropped off, in part of me not being very big on texting. More than a year after seeing Kate, I received a very late night text from John saying, "I miss you," assuming he had sent this to me by mistake. I ignored it. Fast forward to a month or so ago, I took a weekend trip to visit Kate. We had been planning this get together for a while, and I was super excited to spend some much needed girl time with her. I had been anticipating a chill weekend with my best friend, but nothing could have prepared me for the Twilight Zone shit I was about to walk into. Kate and John picked me up from the airport, and I was made to feel uncomfortable almost immediately. John had extended his arms for a hug upon my arrival, which I thought nothing of and accepted. He held me a bit too tightly and a bit too long, and then commented on how hot I looked. Not nice or even pretty, hot. I sort of just laughed awkwardly and looked towards Kate, who seemed to not be paying attention at the moment. I pushed this aside, chalking it up to a social fluke on his part, and enjoyed the rest of my day with them. The daylight hours went smoothly, save for John suggesting several times that we all get drunk that evening. Not being a drinker, I declined him, only to have him get a little pushy with it. I politely reaffirmed my opinion, and he eventually dropped it. After returning to their home, the three of us hung out in the family room and watched a bit of television. We all began talking and somehow came to the topic of a pregnancy scare Kate had told me about a few months prior. John proceeded to tell me how stupid Kate was for way in which she was worried over a possible pregnancy. He said that he had told her several times that it was hardly possible and to stop being such a stupid fucking spaz over it. He went on to tell me that it was her own fault for forgetting her birth control and that it was bullshit for her to then expect him to use protection. I was entirely thrown off at the way he had raised his voice and talked so rudely about my friend. I defended her, saying that it was an entirely legitimate thing to worry over and that if she prefers that he wears protection in order to be safe, that he should respect her wishes. He only laughed at me, and Kate stayed totally silent during the entire interaction. John then asked if I wanted to sleep in bed with him and Kate rather than in the guest room, which I found totally strange. I declined the offer and went to bed. The following morning, Kate and I had made plans to go shopping. She mentioned John wouldn't be with us because he had to work, which I was very grateful for. Before leaving the house, however, John stopped me and said, "You're a heavy sleeper." Confused, I gave a weird look and asked what he meant. He went on to say, "You're a heavy sleeper. You don't even wake up when people touch you." That is insane. That is the craziest thing for this. Like, I mean, he's already been crazy strange, this John guy. But imagine sleeping the night at your friend's house and their boyfriend or their significant other says, "You're a heavy sleeper. You don't even wake up when people touch you." That is legitimately the creepiest statement you could ever wake up to. I have no clue how this is going to proceed, but let's continue. Now, normally, I would have interrupted this as someone possibly trying to rouse me earlier by tapping my shoulder or something along those lines. But the way in which John was smirking at me and the inflection and emphasis he had put on the word touch caused me to think otherwise. I asked John what the fuck he was talking about, and he only laughed, saying it was nothing. Now, I happen to take some relatively strong sleeping pills, which Kate is aware of. These knocked me out pretty hard, but I believe I would have woken up given the chance that someone entered the room or touched me inappropriately. So I highly doubt anything actually happened, but the possibility of him touching me in my sleep makes me sick. Actually, the fact that he would say that to me just to cause anxiety makes me sick. I went on to try and enjoy my outing with Kate, which unfortunately didn't offer much solace. While stopped at a red light, Kate and I sat quietly as a group of pedestrians crossed the street. Kate made a comment on how beautiful one particular girl in the crowd happened to be. I agreed that she was a very pretty woman, only for Kate to suddenly spout out, "I'm not attracted to men." She had said this as if the words had been dying to leave her lips for years. I was pretty dumbfounded and caught off guard by the sudden confession, as I had never entertained the idea of Kate being a lesbian. She had mentioned once a short fling she shared with a girl in middle school, but claimed it to have been nothing more than a cry for attention. We joked about this here and there, but I never thought she could have been lying. I didn't answer due to lacking a decent response, so she followed up by blatantly telling me that she is a lesbian and that she doesn't love John. I asked Kate why on earth she would marry him then, and she only said, "Because I think it's what I should do." I tried to talk to her more about this, but she then told me she would prefer the subject be dropped. At this point, I was counting down the hours to my flight home the next morning, and after hearing John would be joining us for dinner, I was even more eager to get away. After meeting up with him, the three of us began walking into the restaurant, only for me to catch John's hand veering dangerously close to my butt. I shifted away, and he moved very quickly in an attempt to grab it. Luckily, I managed to jump to the side, leaving him with only his fingertips brushing my skirt. I told him to watch his fucking hands, and he just laughed again and made some kind of comment on my appearance and the fact that he couldn't help it. Dinner couldn't have gone by slower. I sat there hardly saying a word and wondering if I should just try and get a hotel room for the evening. However, my stupid self decided that I could make it one more night and save the cash. I told Kate that I was very tired the moment we got back to her place, but she insisted that I watch our favorite movie together before I have to go home. Unable to say no, the two of us head up to her room. Her roommate's bedroom is on the bottom floor next to the family room, so the television would have woken them up. About an hour into the movie, John comes in and asks to watch with us. Kate tells him of course, and hardly 10 minutes passes before he's attempting to convince Kate and I to kiss. I say no repeatedly and just keep looking at the screen. Kate isn't saying a damn word about it, and John actually starts pleading with us to just kiss really quick, so I tell him to shut up and that he's ruining the movie. A couple more minutes of silence pass by until John outright asks if I'd like to sleep with him. The way that he went about asking was as if he had deluded himself into thinking he was fucking irresistible to me. I told him no and pointed out the fact that Kate was sitting right next to me. I looked at her, expecting some kind of response, but it was obvious that she'd totally spaced out at this point. John informed me that Kate was fine with, quote, sharing him. He continued to badger me and insisted that I show him some appreciation for allowing me to stay in his home. I looked at Kate and asked her, "How are you okay with this?" She looked as if she was unable to hear me, staring straight ahead with dull eyes. I got up to leave, only for John to attempt to block the door. Mind you, I'm a 5 foot tall, 100-pound girl being physically blocked by a very large man. I tell John firmly to move, only for him to once again say that I owe him. I took my chances and shouldered my way past him. Luckily, he didn't do much but attempted to grab me as I exited the room. I gathered my things quickly and got the hotel room. Kate never even acknowledged what happened. I think she may be suffering from either John's abuse or some kind of mental disorder, which makes me feel bad for being angry with her. But I am. I'm very angry that she sat by and did nothing while her fiance was so aggressive with me. Kate is aware that I was SA'd in the recent past and therefore am sensitive to such pushy advances. I talk to Kate very sparsely and she doesn't seem to understand why. By coincidence, I happen to have accepted a role in an internship program close to the city she lives in. Within a month, I will be living in very close proximity to both her and John, and I need to figure out what to do. I want to help my friend. I'm afraid that she's experiencing abuse, living a lie by pretending to be heterosexual, and may possibly be suffering from some kind of mental illness. I've never been in a situation like this, and I'm at a complete loss. I don't want to see Kate after I move because that in turn means I'll see John. Any advice as to how I can help her and try to diffuse the situation would be massively helpful. Edit, whoa, my gosh, I just woke up and I had no expectations of this post blowing up so much. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of the advice and support. Seriously, you guys have no idea how much it means to me. I've decided to talk with Kate. I'm nervous as hell because I have no clue how she'll react, but I need to reach out to her. She has been there for me during trying times in my life. I want to be there for her. I know for a fact that John works tonight and Kate will accompany him sometimes and just sort of sit there and be idle all evening. I should have recognized this as weird earlier, but I don't know if she's going tonight. I asked if she'd like to Skype this evening, and she responded with, quote, "Why do you want to talk to me all of a sudden?" I told her I'd like to just catch up and apologize for being so busy as of late. Haven't received an answer just yet, but I'll try my best to update tonight if we get the chance to talk. Once again, thank you everyone. I'll try to respond to as many comments as possible. I'm not receiving any good advice from those close to me, so this is insanely beneficial. Edit 2, Skyping with Kate tonight. She agreed a lot more excitedly than I had anticipated, judging by her preceding texts. We chatted for just a bit afterward, and oddly, she brought up the fact that she had recently watched Rush and commented on how hot Chris Hemsworth is. I was a bit thrown off for obvious reasons, given that she had not only confessed to being lesbian, but verbatim told me she's not attracted to men. Maybe I'm reading too far into it, so I just agreed that yes, Chris Hemsworth is indeed gifted, and told her I couldn't wait to talk tonight. I'm still very nervous. And now let's get into some of the top comments. One commenter says, "I do think it's possible that Kate is being abused. The way he berated and insulted her over the pregnancy scare was abusive. The fact that he was so comfortable making blatant grabs at you in front of her makes me think she's been conditioned and or scared into not reacting. I am very worried for her. I think when you see her in person next, you should speak to her alone and be very honest with how extremely messed up that visit was and tell her you are very worried about her. Ask her if there is any way you can help. Do you know her family? Would it be worth speaking to them about it? And then the OP responds and says, "Thank you so much for the advice. Everyone I've spoken to about this has told me to cut Kate out of my life, and that's not at all what I want to do. It will be extremely hard to get her alone and without John. I never took note of this before my visit, but she would always tell me how adamant John was about going every single place with her. Kate disconnected with her family after moving due to her mother being abusive and her father ignoring that fact, so no. Unfortunately, I can't contact them. She has no one to turn to." Another user says, "This is way past inappropriate. I would even suggest connecting to police to ask for advice on what you could do for your friend, or a local shelter or counselor." And the OP responds and says, "That's what I've been thinking about. I just have a feeling she will deny everything and refuse help. She feels some kind of obligation to marry him, which I think is due in part to her insanely religious upbringing." And another user says, "Obviously, there is no way to know what Kate was doing without her telling you herself. From my opinion, it sounds like Kate is only attracted to girls. Maybe she promised him that she would do something with you in front of him, hence his asking you two to kiss, and it made him think that he had a shot with you too. Maybe she was embarrassed and too fearful of your reaction to say anything, or this could have all been his idea. Nevertheless, it's creepy as hell. To tell a girl that she owes him for him allowing to be a guest there is so damn R-wordy. That, along with the whole mystery of the touching while sleeping thing, solidifies that I would stay the hell away from them." And the OP responds and says, "Others have suggested to me that she may have been trying to initiate three-person intimacy. She hadn't spaced out by the time John started asking us to kiss. She was just looking at me wordlessly. No matter what, I am never ever going near them again unless it's to get Kate and take her somewhere away from him." And then we don't get an update for a very long time, about 8 months, but 8 months later, the OP comes back with a much needed update. And the OP says, "So, I know my original post is super old, but I received an invitation to Kate and John's wedding today. It reminded me of this whole thing, and more importantly, the fact that I never really thanked anyone for all of your supportive comments and advice. Thank you very, very much." Plenty of people have been asking for an update, but honestly, I became so busy with prepping to move that Reddit was not on my list of priorities. So, on to the update. I went through with the Skype chat as planned. Luckily, I had successfully caught Kate alone. We small talked for hardly a minute because my nerves were buzzing and I wanted to get this over with. I jumped right to it and explained to her why I've been distancing myself, that John's behavior was seriously concerning. I listed to her the exact events that have made me feel uncomfortable, both for her safety and mine. She listened in dead silence, as I'm certain this had not been her expectation for our chat. After I'd finished, I asked why she would want to spend her life with this man, especially since she'd confided in me with her intimate orientation. Kate broke down pretty quickly, and to sum it up, she's been in love with me since high school. I can't put into proper words how I feel about this part. Yes, as some of you suggested, Kate and John had been trying to set up a 3-person intimacy the entire weekend I was there. I asked her whose idea it had been, and she said it was hers, but that John was incredibly excited at the suggestion. She admitted to having planned the entire thing out with John before even inviting me to visit. She said they planned to see if the intimacy would come naturally and then try and initiate if that were not the case. I asked her why she was okay with John acting so coercive, and she said he'd promised to make it happen no matter what, after I hadn't caught the hint the past 2 nights. She said she felt desperate to be with me intimately and would do anything for that to happen. I asked her even if it meant having to force me, and she said maybe. So, but I would enjoy it eventually. Then I would probably have just given in, and she could have joined if John had followed through. Not gonna lie, this made me feel fucking sick. But I set those feelings aside and told her very gently that I don't reciprocate her romantic feelings, but I still care for her as a friend. I told her that I feared for her safety and happiness and only wanted to help. Well, that completely flipped a switch. Honestly, I've never seen Kate angry. She's a passive person to a fault, but holy shit, did she lose it on me. Kate made a total 180 and began making accusations that didn't make sense. That I was trying to steal John away from her, and that I can't have him. That his aggression towards me, as well as my past SA, was directly my fault due to how I dress and present myself. That all her insecurities are my fault because she has to put up with John talking about how I look and asking why she can't act more like me. I enjoy doing my makeup and hair, wearing dresses and heels when I go out, while Kate wears only baggy clothing and does nothing to her hair or face. It's always been this way. We just have different styles. Anyhow, she ended her tirade telling me to commit S-word. So honestly, I just got off the call after that. I feel as though Kate is dealing with issues that are far out of my league to assist with, and I could not continue speaking to her. My internship is over now, so I'm home and away from both of them. During my internship, they both attempted to contact me multiple times, but I always deleted the messages. Kate simply ignored what had transpired between us and asked why I wouldn't speak to her. Then John made a few jokes about kidnapping me. I only saw both of them once during my entire internship. I had the chance to attend a large pop culture convention, and I was seriously so stoked about it despite having no friends to go with. Luckily, I found a couple girls on Facebook through my internship group page who were also looking for people to go with. I knew for a fact Kate and John would be going, as they attend every year. Plus, the costume I chose to wear was near unmissable, so I was certain they would notice me. But honestly, I was not about to let them spoil the event for me and went anyhow. I gave the girls a rundown of the situation, and they all assured me they had my back. Lo and behold, as I'm standing in an autograph line with my friend, who hugs me from behind, but John. I basically went into spaz mode and flailed until he let go. He acted all confused. Kate was right behind him being quiet. I'd like to say that I told him off like a champ, but I didn't. I was scared, honestly, so I just ran. I was wearing massive heels, so I had to do that weird crouch move where you're not really running, but more so fast walking like a werewolf. A couple of the girls followed me to make sure I was good. Never saw them again. I know the general consensus was to not cut Kate out of my life, but I honestly do not believe either of them are safe to be around. I feel that Kate is dealing with something beyond what I can assist with, and my personal safety needs to come first. Obviously, I'm not going to the wedding. Thank you all for the helpful advice and support I received on my previous post. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, well, that was unbelievably terrifying. Christ, something's not right about this one. Someone replies to that saying, yeah, 100% would never go near them again. I would have contacted the girl's parents, however, and told them to help their daughter. It was never a problem OP could solve without significant risk to herself. I would have asked the girl's parents to take that risk as they should. And someone else replies saying, this has serial killer couple vibes all over it. Also, what the fuck, OP? Your friend admits she wants to R-word you, and you still care for her as a friend? Someone else says, Jesus, what a nightmare. At first, it seemed like Kate was a victim, but now it looks like she was fine with S.A.ing her friend? I'm glad OP got out of there. And someone else says, holy shit, that was an insane read. I caught my husband cheating on me with his stepsister. Originally posted to True Off My Chest, and the post reads as follows. I just need a place to let this out. Last week, I, 29 female, caught my husband, Jack, 30 male, cheated on me with his stepsister, Claire, who's 24 female. I went out with a friend last Saturday and planned to stay at her house. Jack didn't want to be alone all night, so he said he'd just go hang out with his stepsister. They've always been close, and they ended up going to a bar. I was feeling unwell and just wanted my bed, so I decided to get an Uber and head home. I was not expecting to walk in on them having intimacy on the couch. I literally threw up on the floor by the front door. They told me they were drunk and it just kind of happened. I screamed at them both to leave. Jack refused to leave and refused to sleep on the couch. So I ended up leaving anyways and went back to my friends. I am still in shock that he actually slept with Claire. I think I'm gonna file for divorce. I am so overwhelmed and uncomfortable. Has anyone else gone through this? Please message me if so. I feel very alone and confused. Also, do I tell their parents that's why we're gonna get a divorce? I've been isolating myself a lot because of this. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, I'm guessing this wasn't the first time. I'm sorry, OP. Please don't hesitate to tell people why you are divorcing so he doesn't have the opportunity to paint you as the bad guy. Another user says, wow, I am so sorry, OP. Definitely tell their parents. I'm curious, how long have they been step-siblings? And the OP replies saying, their parents got married when they were very young. It makes me kind of sick that they've been in each other's lives since they were young and could actually do this. They've always said they consider themselves as full siblings, so this is really disturbing. Another user replies that saying, they probably said that to throw you off. Sorry, they've probably been doing this for a very long time. And another user replies saying, I agree. I feel like something like that doesn't just happen after so many years of living as siblings. It may have been going on for a while, but what worries me is since when? There is a 6-year age difference here. Even if they did wait until she was older, 18, he'd be 24. Just the fact that he could look at her as anything other than his bratty little sister is very disturbing and concerning. So run sounds like way too much to deal with. That is not your responsibility. And someone else says, you think? Even ignoring the stepsister element, he took a girl into your home knowing you wouldn't be there to have intimacy. I'm gonna bet it is not their first time something like this has happened. Get proof, lawyer up, and tell the family. Another user comments saying, has she tried calling you? And the OP replied saying, yes. Claire tries texting me every day to apologize and is begging me not to tell anyone. And then someone replies saying, it's not your burden to keep their shameful betrayal a secret. The faster you tell people and get it out in the open, the sooner this will all be over. And then another user says, if they have been step-siblings since young ages, not only would I expect them to see each other as siblings, I'd also expect him to see her as his little sister. When he hits puberty, she would have just been very young, and it strikes me as kind of predatory for him to see her intimately. Even if they are both consenting adults now, because that attraction wouldn't just have randomly developed after all this time, it would have been there, acted upon or not, for many years. Likely when he was an adult and she was still a minor. And then the OP posted an update 5 days later, and let's get into it. I wanted more information on how long it's been going on and at what age it started, so I decided to text Claire. I told her I wouldn't tell anyone if she answered my questions. She agreed to tell me everything. I asked her when they first had intimacy. At first, she told me it was their first time. But I told her I'm not believing that. She then confessed that their first time was right before she turned 18. I'm so disgusted and extremely concerned. Then I asked her if it's still been happening since then, and she said no. She explained that they did it when she was still a minor and never did it again until last week. I don't think I can trust her though. I don't know. She also told me that Jack is the one who initiated it, but who knows if that's the truth. It very well could be though. Jack and I have been together for 5 years, married for 2. We are gonna start trying for a baby soon. So I'm crushed. I wasted so many years of my life with this man. I don't even know who he even is right now. I lied to Claire though. I 100% planned on telling their parents. Some of you say that it would be wrong to do so, but because it happened when she was still a minor, I felt like they needed to know and deal with it however they chose. They didn't believe me at first, until I showed them the screenshots of mine and Claire's conversation. They still seemed to be in denial a little bit. I don't blame them though. I told them I'm filing for divorce and that I'm moving on with my life. They gave me a hug and said they'd speak to both of them, but I told my mother-in-law that I didn't want to know anything else and to please let me live in peace. She's going to respect that. I more than likely won't have any more updates, but I wanted everyone to know that I'm for sure getting a divorce and I'm going to find a therapist because I'm depressed and need the support to move on. Thank you to everyone who was kind and gave me advice and support. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, "Good luck to you. I wish you nothing but the best. Does soon-to-be ex feel any remorse at all?" And the OP replies saying, "Nope. He's been very cold towards me and refuses to leave the house, so I've been staying with my friend." Another user says, "A lot of the times when I was working with younger clients, they lied to me about certain parts of their stories, and oftentimes their lies had a part that was true. It is very well possible that she was younger than when she said. So the truth is that she was underage. The lie is about the timeline. Just saying." And someone replied saying, "Also, if intimacy happened that young, then there had to be a significant manipulation leading up to it. Contrary to what the adult websites would have us believe, step-siblings don't just suddenly decide to blink for shits and gigs and do something." And then another user says they had been step-siblings for years before she turned that age. It was absolutely manipulation. And someone else says the beginning age of that young was also given by a person caught being with their sibling. How truthful do we think this number really is? And then someone else says, "Don't leave the house. That can be thought of as abandoned property. Get an attorney, one who specializes in nasty divorces. You want a shark for this. Ask for the divorce record to be kept private, or not if you want to be able to refer people to court notes. Engage a therapist, not because you need one right now, but because, trust me, there will be days where you will. Separate bank accounts, take your name off of the joint ones after your lawyer tells you to, have your official documents somewhere safe, DL, social security card, house note, car note, spare money, bank vault stuff, etc." And then someone else says, "I know people are saying you told the parents out of petty revenge, but I think you were right to tell them. Who knows what your husband would have told his parents about the reasons for the divorce. In order to hide his own wrongdoings, he might have started telling them, and others, that it was you who cheated. Believe me, I've seen it happen. It's important that you set the record straight." And someone else says, "I'm weirdly proud of you. That took such courage, and you handled it with incredible dignity. I wish you well as you start to pick up the pieces. I know this is the furthest thing from your mind, but one day you will meet someone who will make you glad you left Jack." And that is the last update we have ever received from the OP, and I just hope that the OP can get out of this disgusting mess, be able to divorce him pretty easily, and get safe and happy. But, man, I just feel so bad for the OP. I can't imagine walking in on that. That'll take years to recover from, but I really do hope that the OP is doing better now.